Maki made me promise that I would give it back to you.
This is something that I have to do. As a mortal living in this world.
Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. We're going to be trying out the new part 2 Carnival LR Sword of Hope Trunks. Of course, we only managed to pull one copy, so he is at his bare minimum of 55%. No link levels, no skill orbs. We're trying them bare bones. I'm not gonna lie, even at Rainbowed, I've seen some very flip-flop reactions to this guy, and I can see why. He's heavily relying on additional supers, and considering we don't have dupes or even skill orbs right now, at 55%, I'm really curious to see how he performs in some of the harder content events, just to see if he can actually hold his own. But I've seen him take some damage, so as I said, 55% is really going to be a test. We actually have him on a very good rotation already. This is one thing I said he would do, and I like that he does, is he has a very good rotation for himself. He links almost perfectly. Actually, do you know what? Golden Warrior is a doo-doo link. He links perfectly with the LR Vegeta and Trunks. And I know this unit gets a lot of slander, I've noticed recently. They still hold their own easily after like 1-2 turns of stacking. So I don't know where that comes from. And mine's at 55. So he has a very good slot 1 unit next to him, of course, can work really well with Future Trunks. He also has a ton of good 200% leads as well. Not only do we have him on his own, which is the full 200% Time Travelers category, which is pretty good. I mean, your best bet is running, you know, Zamasu Roses on one rotation, him like Vegeta and Trunks on another. But he goes on a new Future Gohan's lead, he goes on a new VB lead, he goes on Carnival Kid Gohan's lead, Strength Carnival Z Goku's lead, Beastless Gohan's lead, Orange Piccolo, Vegeta and Trunks, 23rd World Tournament Goku, and even God Goku. So some very strong leader skills for him. But I do love this rotation. So turn 1, 235k attack stat, 180k defense. Of course, in this event, he isn't really going to be taking any damage because, well, if he ends up taking damage, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed because this is the Vegeta event. But turn 1, ton of key spheres, 5.997, just shy of a 6 million attack stat. Not bad. Not bad. Can additional as well, which he has at 3.78. So we've activated his entrance animation. He would get key +3 and launch an additional attack. There's a 70% chance of becoming a super attack for 4 turns from the start of turn. So that additional we done there is going to have a 70% chance for 4 turns, which is very helpful at building up his defense because he does stack and he'll greatly raise attack by 50% for 1 turn, which is where most of his damage is coming from. And on 12 key, where that additional is going to be kicking in, he will raise attack and defense by 30% for 1 turn. So that 70% chance of an additional it's going to help. It's going to help Trunks in those early phases, in those early few turns. Essentially, have a bit of extra cover, have a bit of extra defense while you're stacking. Because it's not like he's stacking by 50% like the Tech Trunks. It's not like he's stacking both attack and defense. It's not like he stacks defense on both 18 and 12 key. Just by 30%, just on 18 key. So having that additional in there to do some extra damage, but also giving some extra defense for the turn is going to be very useful for the early turns. But when we actually go into the harder content, we'll see how much of an actual difference that makes. He does start with key +3 and attack and defense +150 at the start of turn. He then gains an additional attack +100% when performing a super attack, which shouldn't be too difficult, as I said, considering how well he does link up with quite a few units, especially Vegeta and Trunks being the main one. I mean, you also have Tech Trunks as well, Tech Transforming Trunks. The only thing is you don't really have a slot 1 unit between them, but here's a possibility. You know, maybe you're in Shadow Dragon Sin Shenron, Shadow Dragon Omega, Broly, somewhere like that. You've had enough time for these guys to both stack, especially the Tech Trunks, and then you could eventually get them on the same rotation if Tech Trunks has enough defense, but probably something you will want to avoid. I did bring Mai as well for some support, just to kind of show it off, because I haven't actually awakened Bulma yet. That is pending. So we're on a 282 attack stat, 337k defense off of what, 1 stack and now support. And we're getting a 24 key super attack as well, just to do some extra damage. And with my support, we're going to be super attack first. That is defense load, which is fine. 7.34 million attack stat, which is not bad. It's decent. You'll then also get an additional key +1 up to 5, which considering he's an LR and you want to get the 18 key consistently as possible so he can stack his defense. That is very nice, that's going to help a lot. You're going to get 10% defense up to 50% of each attack performed, which of course the additional in his entrance animation is going to help him do so very, very quickly. So what, he's appeared 2-3 times, so the extra key in defense should be built up by now. And then he'll get damage reduction by 10% within the same turn with each super attack performed. Which this is where he's highly relying on additional supers, because not only are you going to get some extra attack and defense on the 12 key, but also you want him to additional super attack as much as possible, even though it's not a lot, but it can make a difference, so you can get that 30% damage reduction. I kind of wish, because he does have chances, there's no guaranteed additional, I kind of wished they did make that tied to additional attacks, maybe not additional supers, or maybe just kind of give him one guaranteed additional in there at least, just so you can get like the bulk of that damage reduction and maybe miss out by like 10% here and there, because there's probably going to be quite a few times at 55% anyway that I'm going to experience when I need it the most, where I'm not really going to have that 30% damage reduction, especially after turn 4 where I've lost that 70% chance of an additional super. So it would have been nice if you had a guaranteed additional in there and then like a 30% chance of an additional super somewhere else. Or, you know, if that was tied to something else, not super attacks, especially at him being 55%. If he had more dupes, again, I've still seen some flip-flop reactions of him on private servers rainbowed. So if that's the case there, then I'm a little bit nervous taking him into difficult content at 55%, where I'm going to really need to rely on those additional supers, because I don't have like the dupe potential system, and nor do I have extra stats in my favor either. But I'm curious. He then also gets an attack plus 100% and launches an additional attack that has a high chance to become a super attack as the second or third attacker in a turn, which of course, building him up even quicker from his passive, that key in defense, your best bet is having him in slot 2. The only reason why we have him in slot 1 here is because we can, and just so we don't do too much damage where he's not stacking and we don't get to see some numbers for him. But in those, in general, he's going to be a slot 2 unit anyway. But those early turns are crucial, because then you're going to have that 70% chance from the entrance animation. You're going to have a 50% chance as the second or third attacker in a turn. And again, they have the perfect slot 1 to do it. And at least that way you can build up his passive to get that key in defense as quick as possible. And you can potentially super attack 3 times in one turn, which means not only will you get a 30% raise in stack, but then you'll also get 2 30% attack and defense raises, giving a bit of extra defense. And of course, so you can then get that 30% damage reduction. But don't forget, that's a 70% chance, which you'll lose after turn 4, and then a 50% chance as long as he's the second or third attacker in a turn. And then he'll launch an additional attack. There's a 50% chance of becoming a super attack starting from the 5th turn. So literally right now. So I'm going to go one more, just one more turn of Trunks before we pop his standby. So as I said, even more reason for him to be in slot 2 or slot 3, which he'll normally be with when we use him, because then again, during those 4 turns, you have three chances to super. Then from turn 5 onwards, you will keep those 5 turns to super, but you'll have a 50% chance to do so on each of his additional supers. The only thing is, if they don't pop, he doesn't get his damage reduction. If they don't pop, he doesn't get his 30% attack and defense raise, which can give him a bit of extra cover. That's the only thing. That's the only reason why I wish. 8.57 though on the attack stat. This is why I kind of wish one of them at least was guaranteed. And then you could have lowered the other ones to 30. Or kept them the same. Probably would have helped him out a lot more. But this is why I kind of wish one of them was guaranteed. Not having 2 of them from turn 5 onward being both 50. Because that's a coin flip chance. If one of them doesn't pop, you don't get the full 30% damage reduction. Or I wish he got more damage reduction, like a 40 or a 50. But it was more difficult to obtain the full 40 or the full 50%. But he would average out of like 30%, which will make a huge difference. So I reckon they could have made some tweaks. They could have made some changes to make it a bit more consistent for it to actually work a little bit better. Again, especially at 55%, like right now we're getting fairly lucky with the additional supers, even though we are on turn 5. But I mean, this is the first time we've seen him without the 70% chance. But already I can tell from his passive, I can tell from his kit, because he's so reliant on the additionals. And I know Dokkan's an RNG game anyway, like it's heavily based around RNG. But Trunks is one of them units where if you don't have dupes, even though he does have the additionals built into his passive, but since you're so reliant on them for him to defend well, Like, think about how hard some of these enemies hit. Think about Cooler Core's supers, Sin's basics, especially from the beginning. If they don't pop, you don't get the additional supers, because you don't have an extra chance for it to happen either, because you don't have dupes in them, and skill orbs are only a very minor chance. If they don't pop, you may miss out on damage reduction. Worst case scenario, none of his additional supers pop, and we only get 10% damage reduction, which is only going to do so much. But he's up to 513k defense, and we're up to turn 7. It's not bad, it's just, do you know what, that's one thing I think would have actually made a big difference, is keep all the chances to get the additional super, right? Keep that. The way I would have done it perfectly with this guy, considering he has 513k defenses, the entrance animation additional I think should have been guaranteed. Then I think naturally one of his additional supers should have been 70, and then the other one should have been 50. Because at least that way there's a bit more consistency to it, and you get those 30% attack and defense raises, and there's more likely of a chance for you to get the damage reduction. I still would have given him a little bit more if they were to increase his additional chance of a super, but they should have let this man stack defense on both 18 and 12 key, whether that was by 50 on 18, 30 on 12, or just 30 on both. I feel like he should have stacked defense on both, because we're almost at the end of the Vegeta event, which is long form content, which we don't really have much of. And he's on 513k defense with the potential, which isn't even guaranteed, of only 30% damage reduction. It will make a difference, but it's not consistent enough that he gets it again, especially at 55%. And at least with these changes, it would have helped him at 55% a lot more. So I feel like he should have stacked defense on both 12 and 18. Whether that was the same amount or 50 on one, 30 on the other, I don't really mind. And they should have given him a tiny bit more damage reduction. And I feel like it would have helped him a bit more. It would have made him a bit more consistent. It would have helped him perform better at 55%. Because turn 7 in difficult content, having 513k defense with the potential of maybe 10, maybe 20, and maybe the full 30% damage reduction, it's only going to get you so far. It's only going to get you so far. He definitely should have stacked on both 12 and 18 key. But let's pop the standby and let's get Trunks cooking.
I fought to protect everyone and survived with everyone's help. We worked together and survived. That's what it means to be mortal! Quickly, Vegeta! Us too!
So we now in Trunks' standby, so we'll now have that lovely little glowing blue aura during his super attacks. And while he's in his standby, he does get key plus 12, attack and defense plus 200%. He'll then gain an additional attack plus 150 when performing a super attack. He'll launch additional attack that has a 70% chance of becoming a super attack, and damage reduction by 50% for one turn from the start of turn. He'll guard all attacks and launch an additional attack that has a 70% chance of becoming a super attack as the first attacker in the turn. So once you do trigger his standby, you do want to pop him in slot 1. And we are on a 282 attack stat, 410k defense. It doesn't matter how much key we get, because of course Trunks he's getting 12 key as it is, and he's almost perfectly linked up with Vegeta and Trunks. And of course you fill his meter by performing super attack. So 9.18 on the first one. As you can see, there is this blue glow. The animations, I'm pretty sure, are the exact same, aside from of course the blue glow. And this is where the additionals do get more consistent, but before you pop the standby to get the finish skill, it's just, to me, especially at 55%, it's just not consistent enough. Like, there's a ton of 70% chance of additional supers here. There's 50% damage reduction for one turn, which is fine because he has guard as long as he's in slot 1. But, you know, as I said, just you don't have anywhere near the same consistency before he uses his active skill or his standby skill, which, from what I'm seeing from private server videos where he's rainbowed and what I can kind of get from his kit, where his defense is sitting out before we use the standby, that lack of consistency, it's going to get him caught. It's going to get him killed. He's going to get one shot by a few enemies. Like, I've said this before, I will use items. Like, if you want to go on no item runs, that's fair enough. If you don't like to compare units using items, then that's fair enough. I will use items. So I will say this, 500k defense on turn 7 with an item active, with all the possible additional supers he can do, he'll be fine. He'll be fine. But even prior to that, it's quite similar to Tech Transforming Trunks. He could probably easily get you caught while he's stacking if those additional supers don't pop. So with an item active, he's fine. He's fine. Before that though, I said there is ample opportunity for this man to get you caught. So we're ready to pop this, which the rest of his kit while in standby is he'll launch an additional super attack with 5 or more keys fizz obtained, which is easy to do because his own rainbow orb changer as well. So that guaranteed additional is very nice, and his SA effects remain the same. So he will continue stacking his defense in the standby as well. But for the sake of the video, we're going to pop this right now, and we've even got the My Support. Let's pop this active skill and let Trunks cook with a little bit more fire.
I won't let you win! I'll never let you destroy our will to live!
So off of that finish skill, he does raise his attack by 50% per charge count and cause super ultimate damage to the enemy. So you can keep it going if you want to, but again, for the sake of the video, we just popped it. The only thing is, once you use it, of course, Trunks goes back to what I've been saying this entire video, which is his very inconsistent form. I mean, it would have been nice if maybe he got some like added buff off of coming off of that, or kind of remained in a similar form to his standby, or maybe remained in that form just without the finish skill. Of course, he goes back to just his standard form before the standby. I mean, with the My Support, he does have 713k defense, which is decent. So it's not like it takes him ages to stack, especially while he does have the additional 12 key to kind of cover him with some extra defense, with the amount of times he can potentially do it. But I'm not gonna lie, from how much better his standby form is, I'd probably get him into the standby as quick as possible, especially because the SA effects remain the same, which won't take you long, because you can activate the standby from the 5th turn, and he stands by for 4 turns. So I would get him in there almost as quick as possible and keep him in his standby, stack him for as long as possible before you have to use his finish skill, so you can keep that consistency, so you can keep that extra defense, so you keep the extra damage reduction, the 1-turn guard. I would probably get him there when the kind of event starts to get serious, you know, damage starts to ramp up. Leave him in it for the full 4 turns, and then, you know, of course, use the finish skill, get him out of it. Because that standby form is, or that standby phase is so much better than his kind of just base form, his natural just kind of kit. One thing I will say, he does seem like a lot of fun to use, especially if those additional supers are popping for you. And I can imagine with dupes, the amount of times this guy can super attack, a lot of fun. Not to mention the amount of damage this guy can potentially do, even at 55%, and especially with dupes. Pretty nice, especially when you're hitting crits along the way. But defensively, just relying on stacking by 30% and that's it. Yes, he does get 30% defense on the 12 keys as well, but just mainly relying on him stacking by 30% is only going to get you so far. We've already seen it with Easy A Tech Transforming Trunks. The only difference is he has one 12 key super attack where he stacks attack and defense by 50%, and he can do that multiple times in 1 turn. So at least he has that, and he can stack up, as we've seen, to like 1,000,000 defense in almost no time at all if those additional supers pop. Whereas Trunks, this Trunks at least, is a little lacking behind that. So I think with dupes, he really needs them, but even so, and more so at 55%, he relies on them a hell of a lot more because of that damage reduction. And if you don't get them, this guy could really be in trouble. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'll see you next video, guys. Take care of the rest of your day, and peace.